Thaddeus Blackwood didn't believe in coincidences anymore. Not after 4 centuries of existence. Not after losing Jackson. And especially not after his phone rang at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. He was in his study at Crimson Court Estate, reviewing financial reports, when the call came. The caller ID made his ancient heart stutter. St. Mercy Hospital, New Mexico. Social services. He hadn't heard from that area code in 3 years. Not since Jackson's funeral. Not since he'd made that promise over a closed casket while a 13-year-old girl with her father's gray eyes had squeezed his hand. "Thaddeus Blackwood," he answered. "Mr. Blackwood." The woman's voice was strained. "My name is Rebecca Chen. I'm a social worker at St. Mercy Hospital. I'm calling about Lily Morrison." The name hit him like silver through the heart. "What happened?" "She's been admitted with injuries consistent with abuse. Her stepfather brought her in claiming she fell downstairs, but..." Rebecca paused. "She gave us your name. Said you promised her father you'd protect her." "I'm coming." Thorne was already moving with supernatural speed. "Don't let anyone take her out of that hospital. Mr. Blackwood, her stepfather is Officer Daniel Morrison. He has legal custody. I don't care who he is." Thorne's voice carried centuries of authority. "Jackson Morrison saved my life 16 years ago. He gave everything helping my coven fight the Shadowborn War. The last thing he asked was for me to watch over his daughter. Can you keep her safe until I get there?" Silence. Then, "How fast can you get here?" 18 hours. "And Miss Chen, thank you." After hanging up, Thorne stood in his study, surrounded by centuries of accumulated history. His reflection in the mirror showed a man who looked 35, dark hair with silver at the temples, eyes that shifted between gray and amber. But he felt every one of his 400 years, felt the weight of a promise made to a dying friend. He opened the encrypted group chat for Crimson Court. 100 vampires spread across 4 states. He typed, "Jackson's daughter needs us. Hospital in New Mexico. Domestic situation. Rolling out at dawn. This is family." The responses came instantly. "I'm in. Silas. Count me there. Evangeline. For Jackson. Marcus." Within 10 minutes, all 100 members had responded. Thorne looked at the painting on his wall, him and Jackson during better times. Jackson grinning, arm around Thorne's shoulder, no idea he'd die 16 years later fighting the Shadowborn. "I'm coming, brother," Thorne whispered. "I've got her." He grabbed his black leather coat and walked into the pre-dawn darkness. His car waited, a sleek sedan modified for supernatural speed. As he started the engine, he sent one final text. "Crimson Court assembles at dawn. 620 miles to New Mexico. We don't come back without her." Somewhere in that hospital, a 16-year-old girl probably thought no one was coming. 100 vampires were about to prove her wrong. Dawn broke over Crimson Court like a wound. By sunrise, the estate's circular driveway held 100 vehicles in perfect formation. Luxury sedans, modified SUVs, even motorcycles. 100 vampires who dropped everything because family called. Thorne surveyed his coven. Silas Chains Mordecai, 500 years old, now the most feared defense attorney in 5 states. Evangeline Cross, ancient and elegant, survivor of 1,000 years. Marcus Stone, Civil War veteran who understood trauma. Elena Winters, former ER nurse, only 50 vampire years old. These weren't monsters. They were teachers, doctors, lawyers, business owners, but all loyal, all willing to fight for what mattered. "Listen up," Thorne's voice cut through the morning air. "We've got 620 miles. New Mexico by late afternoon. We stop once for fuel, once for blood. We travel smart, and we don't give cops any reason to stop us." "What's the play at the hospital?" Marcus asked. "We protect Lily, whatever it takes, but we do it legally." Thorne's gaze swept the crowd. "Her stepfather is a cop. He'll try to paint us as villains. We're not giving him ammunition. But that girl is not leaving that hospital with him. Not while we breathe." The crowd roared approval. Elena spoke up, checking her phone. "I did some digging on Officer Daniel Morrison. 15 years on the force, decorated cop, community pillar, perfect cover. There's more," she continued quietly. "Lily's mom died 8 months ago. Single vehicle car accident on a clear day. The implication hung heavy. Murder masked as accident. "Mount up," Thorne called. 100 engines roared to life. The convoy flowed onto the highway, a river of dark vehicles heading south. Behind him, his family traveled in perfect formation. Mile markers blurred. The sun burned against vampire skin. Uncomfortable, but bearable. They'd survived worse. By noon, they crossed into New Mexico. By mid-afternoon, St. Mercy Hospital appeared on the horizon. Then Thorne's phone rang. "Silas, we have a problem. Morrison knows we're coming. He's filed discharge paperwork. 3 squad cars at the hospital. He's claiming we're a dangerous gang coming to kidnap a minor. How long do we have?" "Maybe an hour." Thorne looked at the 100 vehicles following him. "Then we'd better make an entrance. Tell the hospital the Crimson Court is coming." He sent a mass text. No time for subtlety. Full display. As they approached St. Mercy, the sun hung low, painting everything crimson. Fitting, Thorne thought darkly. The hospital was about to learn what happened when you hurt someone under vampire protection. The rumble started as a distant earthquake. Nurses paused. Patients stared out windows. Security guards reached for radios. Then 100 vehicles appeared, moving in military precision. All dark colors. All coordinated, all carrying immortal beings unified in purpose. Thorne led them into the parking lot. He raised his hand. The formation split perfectly, vehicles filling every space. Within minutes, they were parked, engines cut off in unison. 100 vampires emerged and stood beside their vehicles, silent, waiting. Even weakened by daylight, they were impressive. Centuries of existence in their stillness. Thorne walked through the automatic doors first, alone. His boots echoed on polished floor. Every eye turned. "I'm here to see Lily Morrison," he said quietly. "I'm Thaddeus Blackwood. Rebecca Chen should be expecting me." "Thaddeus." Rebecca stood by the elevator, exhausted but determined. She glanced at the parking lot, an ocean of vampires. "You brought quite a few people." "I brought family." "Where is she?" "4th floor, room 412. But we need to talk first." In the elevator, Rebecca explained. Fractured wrist, 3 broken ribs, significant bruising, months of abuse, not one fall. But Morrison has legal custody. Without a court order, we can't hold her past tonight. "Tonight?" Thorne's hands clenched. "He can just take her?" "Unless we get emergency orders, yes. He's on his way now." Room 412 was dim, curtains drawn. The girl in the bed looked so different from 3 years ago. Taller, thinner, hollowed by pain. But those eyes, Jackson's eyes, were the same. "Uncle Thorne," Lily's voice cracked. "You actually came?" Thorne crossed to her bedside. "I promised your dad, didn't I?" Then she broke, tears streaming. "He killed my mom. I know he did. Nobody believes me. Everything changed." "Tell me everything," Thorne said urgently. "We don't have much time." Before she could respond, Rebecca appeared. "He's here." Morrison just walked in with 4 officers and a lawyer. Thorne stood. Lily grabbed his hand desperately. "Don't let him take me, please." "That won't happen. Do you trust me?" She nodded. "Then hold on." He looked at Rebecca. "Keep her here. Lock the door if necessary." Thorne texted his coven. "Inside. Stay visible. You know what to do." 100 vampires read and understood. They remained standing, silent sentinels visible through every window. In the lobby, Officer Daniel Morrison commanded the space. 6 feet tall, perfect uniform, campaign poster smile. 4 officers flanked him. A lawyer carried a briefcase. Morrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Thaddeus Blackwood, the vampire. Appreciate you checking on Lily, but I've got it from here. Family business." Thorne walked forward slowly. "Lily asked for me. That makes it my business. She's 16 and confused. Had an accident, got scared." Morrison's tone was reasonable. "But I'm her legal guardian. With fractured wrist and broken ribs. Hell of an accident." The lawyer stepped forward. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm Richard Kessler. Unless you have legal standing, you need to step aside." Funny thing about those forms, they require patient consent at 14. Did anyone ask Lily? Morrison's smile tightened. "My daughter is traumatized. That's why guardians decide. She's not your daughter. She's Jackson Morrison's daughter." Something dark flickered in Morrison's eyes. My wife died 8 months ago. I'm doing my best. And now you show up with," he gestured at the windows, "with whatever this is. Crimson Court, a registered supernatural organization. A gang of vampires." Morrison's voice rose. "I could have you all arrested." The automatic doors opened. "Did somebody order a lawyer?" Silas Mordecai strode in, 500 years of legal expertise in an immaculate suit. Morrison's smile cracked. "Silas," Thorne said with satisfaction. "Officer Morrison," Silas set down his briefcase with a click. "I'm representing Mr. Blackwood and Miss Morrison. I've filed emergency guardianship petitions. Judge Herrera has agreed to a hearing tomorrow, 9 a.m. The lobby erupted in shocked murmurs. "Until that hearing," Silas continued, "Lily remains in protective custody. Any attempt to remove her violates a pending court order." Kessler grabbed the documents, face darkening. "This is a delay tactic. This is due process." News vans pulled into the parking lot. Cameras emerged. Morrison saw them, jaw clenching. "You called the media. 100 vampires at a hospital? That's news." Silas smiled coldly. "What story do you want told?" A reporter pushed inside. "Officer Morrison, comment on abuse allegations?" Morrison shifted to PR mode. "Private family matter being exploited by supernatural entities with no standing. These allegations are unfounded." Silas leaned to Thorne. "Make a statement. Control the narrative. I don't do press conferences. You do now." Thorne walked outside. Cameras pivoted, microphones extended. "My name is Thaddeus Blackwood," he began, voice carrying. 16 years ago, Jackson Morrison died protecting my people. He asked me to watch over his daughter. 3 years ago, I promised." He paused, emotion tightening his throat. "Last night, she called for help, and I came. We all came." He gestured to the 100 vampires. "We're not here to fight. We're here because a child asked for protection. That's what separates us from monsters, choosing compassion. Are you accusing Morrison of abuse?" "I'm saying a 16-year-old girl is terrified to go home. We're vampires, yes. We drink blood, yes. But we have honor. We protect children. That's not negotiable." The 100 vampires stood motionless behind him. A unified statement. Inside, Morrison watched, making urgent phone calls. Whatever he was planning, it was happening now. Tomorrow's hearing would determine if 400 years of vampire honor could stand against one corrupt cop's lies. Night fell over St. Mercy Hospital like a blessing. For the vampires of Crimson Court, darkness meant strength returning, senses sharpening, speed increasing, the uncomfortable weakness of daylight finally lifting. They'd transformed the parking lot into a fortress. Folding chairs appeared, coolers filled with blood bags from their own supply, sleeping bags for the humans among them, donors and allies who'd insisted on coming. Evangeline organized food runs for the hospital staff who'd quietly started supporting them. Marcus coordinated watch rotations. Elena disappeared into quiet corners with her laptop, digging deeper into Morrison's past. Inside, Thorne had commandeered a corner of the cafeteria. Silas spread documents across 3 tables like a general planning war. "Morrison's playing this smart," Silas said, highlighting legal text. "He filed a counter-petition claiming you're an unfit guardian with no legal standing. He's citing your nature as evidence." "My nature?" Thorne's voice was dangerous. "He's arguing that vampires are inherently violent, that you're using supernatural intimidation, that Lily is confused and traumatized, reaching out to a monster because she's not thinking clearly." Silas's ancient eyes narrowed. "He's painting you as the predator and himself as the protective father." Thorne's hands clenched. "We haven't threatened anyone. Doesn't matter. Perception is reality in court. 100 vampires descending on a hospital looks like gang activity, regardless of intent." Silas pulled out another document. "But here's where it gets interesting. I pulled Morrison's financials, public record for law enforcement. In the 8 months since Lily's mother died, he's liquidated 3 investment accounts, taken a second mortgage, and transferred $180,000 to offshore accounts." The number hit Thorne cold. Why would he need that kind of money? Either he's planning to run, or he's paying someone off. Either way, it suggests he's worried about something coming to light. Silas tapped the papers. "The question is what?" Thorne remembered Lily's broken voice. "He killed my mom." "The car accident," Thorne said slowly. "Can we get those records?" Already requested. Should have them by morning. Silas leaned back. But here's the problem. Even if we prove financial irregularities, even if we raise questions about the mother's death, none of that immediately proves Lily is in danger right now. Morrison can claim the transfers are personal investments, that his stepdaughter is making false accusations because she's grieving. So we're nowhere. Not quite. Silas's phone buzzed. He read the message and smiled grimly. Elena just sent something. Morrison coached youth football for 3 years, quit suddenly last season. No explanation. She found 2 parents willing to talk off the record. Their kids reported aggressive coaching that left bruises. Nothing was formally filed because Morrison convinced them it was normal sports injuries. Thorne's jaw tightened. He's been hurting children for years. Allegedly, Silas corrected with lawyer precision. But it establishes a pattern. Combined with Lily's injuries, the financial irregularities, and questions about the mother's death, we're building a picture. A soft knock interrupted them. Rebecca Chen stood in the doorway, looking terrified and determined. I need to show you something. But if anyone asks, you didn't get this from me. She handed Thorne a manila folder. Inside were medical records, not Lily's, but her mother's from the 3 years before her death. 2 broken fingers, a concussion, bruised ribs, all explained as accidents, all treated at different hospitals in different towns. She was running from him, Rebecca whispered, trying to get help without leaving a paper trail in one place. But I cross-referenced her medical history. It's all there, a pattern of abuse. Thorne stared at the documents, 400 years of control barely containing his rage. Why didn't anyone see it? Because he's careful, respected, because the system isn't designed to catch people who know how to work it. Rebecca's voice cracked. I'm risking my career showing you this, but that girl upstairs doesn't have anyone else. Silas was already photographing every page. This changes everything. If we can prove systematic abuse of the mother, we can argue Lily is in immediate danger. There's something else, Rebecca added, checking over her shoulder nervously. Morrison requested Lily's medical records be sealed, said it was for her privacy, but he's trying to control what the court sees tomorrow. Can he do that? Thorne asked. He already did, 2 hours ago. Rebecca pulled out another folder. But I made copies before the order went through. Everything's here, every injury, every suspicious explanation, dating back 3 years. Silas stood, gathering documents with renewed energy. Get some rest, Thorne. Tomorrow's hearing will be brutal. Morrison will bring character witnesses, colleagues, probably half the police force. Let him, Thorne said, voice hard as iron. We have the truth. Truth doesn't always win in court, Silas warned, but it's a damn good start. Thorne left the cafeteria and walked through the hospital corridors. Through windows, he could see his coven maintaining their vigil. Maven, ancient and dignified, sat in a folding chair reading a book by flashlight. Marcus stood watch at the perimeter. Young vampires clustered together, talking quietly. They'd dropped everything to be here. Some had traveled from 3 states away, all because he'd asked, because a promise mattered. He took the elevator to the 4th floor. The police officers who'd been stationed in the hallway were gone. Silas's court order had teeth. Only a single security guard remained, who nodded respectfully as Thorne passed. Room 412's door was slightly ajar. Thorne knocked softly. Come in, Lily's voice called. She was sitting up in bed, her casted arm resting on a pillow. The bruises on her face had darkened, purple and yellow, stark against pale skin. But her eyes were alert, focused. Can't sleep? Thorne asked, settling into the chair beside her bed. Every time I close my eyes, I see him, standing over me, telling me nobody would believe me. Lily's voice was small. For so long, I thought he was right, that I was alone. You were never alone. I just didn't know you needed help. I tried to tell people, teachers, neighbors, but he's so good at pretending, so perfect on the outside. Lily looked at her casted wrist. Mom tried to leave him last year, started packing our things while he was at work, but he found out, and the next week, her car crashed. Do you think he tampered with it? I know he did. The night before, I heard him in the garage. He was under her car for hours, and the next morning, her voice broke. The next morning he was so calm, so collected, like he knew exactly what was going to happen. Thorne felt ancient rage building. 4 centuries of control were being tested. Why didn't you tell anyone this before? Because he's a cop. Who's going to believe a kid over a decorated police officer? He told me if I ever said anything, he'd make sure I ended up in foster care, that he'd find me wherever I went. Lily met Thorne's eyes. But then I remembered something Dad said once, before he died. He told me if I was ever in real trouble, to find you, that you'd promise to protect me, that you always keep your promises. Your father was right. Thorne's voice carried 400 years of certainty. I've kept every promise I've made since I was turned. I'm not starting to break them now. Why did Dad trust you so much? Mom never wanted to talk about it, about the war he fought, what really happened. Thorne was quiet for a moment, deciding how much to share. Your father was human when I met him, a soldier like you know. But during the Shadowborn War, a supernatural conflict most humans never heard about, he saved my life, took an injury meant for me. That's how he died? No, that's how he became vampire. Thorne's expression was distant, remembering. The injury was fatal. I offered him a choice, death or immortality. He chose to live, fought beside us for 6 years. But vampirism never sat right with him. He missed the sun, missed being human, missed the life he'd had before. Lily's eyes widened. Dad was a vampire? For 6 years. Then he found a way to reverse it. An ancient ritual, incredibly dangerous. But he survived, became human again, married your mother a year later. Thorne smiled sadly. He gave up immortality for the chance to have a normal life, to have you, and he never regretted it. So you're not just Dad's war buddy. You're the reason he became a vampire in the first place, and the reason he got to be human again. I owed him everything. Thorne leaned forward. That's why this matters so much. Your father sacrificed his humanity to save my people. The least I can do is save his daughter from a monster. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Lily spoke quietly. What happens tomorrow? At the hearing? We prove Morrison is lying. We show the judge the evidence. Your injuries, your mother's medical history, his financial crimes. Silas is the best supernatural lawyer in 5 states. If anyone can win this, he can. And if we lose, we don't lose. That's not an option. Thorne's eyes flashed amber. But worst case, if the court rules against us tomorrow, we have contingency plans. Like what? Like making you disappear. Vampire networks span continents. We could have you in Europe by nightfall, somewhere Morrison could never find you. New identity, new life, protected by covens older than America itself. Lily's expression was conflicted. That would make you criminals. You'd be kidnapping me, legally. I've been alive 400 years. I've broken laws before for good reasons. I'd do it again for you. Dad really did choose the right person to trust. Lily smiled through tears. Thank you, Uncle Thorne, for everything. Get some rest, Thorne said gently, standing. Tomorrow's a big day, and you need to be strong when you tell that judge the truth. As he left her room, Thorne's phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Found something. Meet me in the parking lot. He took the elevator down and walked outside. The night air was cool, refreshing after the hospital's recycled atmosphere. His coven members nodded as he passed, a gesture of respect and solidarity. Elena stood by one of the SUVs, laptop balanced on the hood, screen glowing in the darkness. Marcus and Evangeline flanked her. What did you find? Thorne asked. Morrison's police record is too clean, Elena said, turning the laptop so he could see. 15 years on the force. Not a single complaint. Not one excessive force report. Not one citizen dispute. For a cop working rough neighborhoods, that's statistically impossible. So he's been covering things up. Not just covering, erasing. I found gaps in the digital records, complaints that were filed but then disappeared. 3 different citizens tried to report him over the years. All 3 complaints vanished from the system within 48 hours. Elena pulled up another screen. But I found the original reports archived in backup servers. All 3 were about aggressive behavior. One was a domestic disturbance call where Morrison allegedly threatened the victim instead of helping. Marcus spoke up, his Civil War drawl heavy with anger. Man's been abusing his power for over a decade. using his badge to intimidate and his position to erase evidence. There's more, Elena continued. The offshore account where he transferred $180,000, I tracked it. The money went to a private investigation firm that specializes in making evidence disappear. He hired them 3 months after his wife died. To cover up her murder, Evangeline said coldly. Can we prove it? Thorne asked. Not conclusively, but we can raise enough questions to make the judge think twice. Elena closed the laptop. Silas needs to see this, all of it. They found the vampire lawyer still in the cafeteria, now surrounded by even more documents. He looked up as they entered, silver hair slightly disheveled, the first sign of stress Thorne had seen from the ancient vampire. Please tell me you have good news, Silas said. Better than good. Elena handed him a flash drive. Morrison's been erasing complaints for years, using his position to cover crimes, and he hired a firm that specializes in evidence destruction right after his wife died. Silas plugged the drive into his laptop, scanning quickly. His expression shifted from tired to energized. This is it. This is what we need. It's not just about Lily anymore. It's about a pattern of corruption, abuse of power, and possible homicide. Can we get it admitted tomorrow? Thorne asked. It's going to be tricky. Some of this was obtained through, let's say, questionable methods. Silas looked at Elena. Hacking police databases isn't exactly legal. I'm a vampire, Elena said flatly. I've got 400 years before the statute of limitations runs out. I'll take my chances. Fair point. Silas began organizing the new evidence. Here's how tomorrow plays out. Morrison goes first. He'll present himself as the devoted father, Lily as the troubled teen. He'll have character witnesses, cops, coaches, probably his priest. He'll be sympathetic, reasonable, the victim of false accusations. Then we destroy him, Marcus said. Then we systematically dismantle his credibility, Silas corrected. We show the financial irregularities, the deleted complaints, the pattern of abuse toward his wife, the suspicious circumstances of her death, and we let Lily tell her story. No coaching, no pressure, just the truth. Will it be enough? Thorne asked. Honestly, I don't know. Judge Herrera is fair, but she's also cautious. She won't want to destroy a cop's career on circumstantial evidence. Silas met Thorne's eyes. But we don't need to prove murder. We just need to prove Lily isn't safe with Morrison. That's a much lower bar. And if we can't clear that bar, then we go to Plan B, the one where we become international fugitives. Silas smiled grimly. But let's win this the legal way first. The rest of the night passed in preparation. Silas rehearsed arguments. Elena organized evidence. Marcus coordinated with the coven outside, making sure everyone understood tomorrow's plan. Thorne stood at a window overlooking the parking lot, watching his people. 100 vampires who'd become a family over centuries, who trusted him, who'd risk everything because he'd asked. He thought about Jackson, about the sacrifice his friend had made, about the promise that had led to this moment. Tomorrow, in a video conference with a judge who held all the power, they would fight for one girl's freedom, one girl's life, one girl's future. And if they lost, Thorne would keep his promise anyway. Laws be damned. The hospital conference room felt too small at 8:45 a.m. Too many people, too much tension, too much at stake. A laptop sat open on the table, its camera pointed at the assembled crowd like a mechanical judge. Thorne sat beside Silas, uncomfortable in a borrowed dress shirt. Across the table, Morrison looked perfect in his dress uniform, medals gleaming under fluorescent lights. His lawyer, Kessler, had a stack of character references that could choke a horse. Behind them, crammed into every space, stood reporters, hospital staff, and 3 uniformed officers Morrison had brought as moral support. Outside the door, Marcus and Evangeline kept watch, while the rest of the coven maintained their vigil. At exactly 9 a.m., Judge Patricia Herrera appeared on screen. She was in her 60s, silver hair pulled back severely, wire-rimmed glasses perched on her nose. Her expression was unreadable. "Let's begin," she said crisply. "This is an emergency hearing regarding temporary guardianship of Lily Morrison, age 16. Mr. Kessler, you represent Officer Daniel Morrison." "Yes, Your Honor. And I'd like to state for the record that this entire proceeding is unnecessary. Officer Morrison is a decorated law enforcement officer with 15 years of exemplary service. Save the character testimony for later, Judge Herrera interrupted. Mr. Mordecai, you're petitioning for emergency guardianship on behalf of Mr. Blackwood? Yes, Your Honor, based on credible evidence of ongoing abuse and immediate danger to the minor child. Morrison's jaw tightened, but his expression remained calm. The picture of a wronged man bearing false accusations with dignity. Let's see this evidence, the judge said. What followed was 90 minutes of legal warfare. Kessler went first, painting Morrison as the devoted father. He called Captain Richard Hayes, Morrison's superior, who testified to Morrison's exemplary service record and dedication to community. Father Michael O'Brien spoke about Morrison's volunteer work at the church. 3 fellow officers described him as a model colleague and devoted parent. Then came the emotional appeal. Kessler produced photos of Morrison at Lily's school events, at her mother's funeral, at family dinners. This is a man who stepped up when tragedy struck. Who took on the responsibility of raising a teenage girl alone, and how is he repaid? With accusations from supernatural entities with no legal standing. Thorne felt his control slipping as he watched the performance. When it was Silas's turn, he stood slowly. 400 years of courtroom experience in every movement. Your Honor, my client would like to present a different picture. One based not on carefully curated photographs, but on documented medical evidence. He pulled up the first document, Lily's medical records from the hospital. Fractured wrist, 3 broken ribs, extensive bruising in various stages of healing, indicating prolonged, repeated trauma. The ER physician's notes specifically state, injuries inconsistent with stated cause of single fall downstairs. Morrison leaned forward. Your Honor, teenagers are clumsy. Lily plays sports. She's active. Mr. Morrison, Judge Herrera said sharply, you'll have your turn to respond. Continue, Mr. Mordecai. Silas pulled up more documents. These are medical records from Lily's mother, Jennifer Morrison, from the 3 years preceding her death. 2 broken fingers, treated at Memorial Hospital. Concussion, treated at County General. Bruised ribs, treated at St. Luke's. All at different hospitals, all explained as accidents. Objection, Kessler stood. Mrs. Morrison's medical history is not relevant to... It establishes a pattern, Silas interrupted. A pattern of domestic violence that Officer Morrison has carefully hidden for years. Alleged pattern, Kessler shot back. My client was never charged, never even investigated for domestic violence, because these were accidents, nothing more. Silas smiled coldly. Let's talk about why there were no investigations. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence that Officer Morrison has systematically deleted complaints from police databases. 3 separate citizens filed complaints against him over the past decade. All 3 complaints disappeared from official records within 48 hours. The room erupted. Morrison's face flushed red. That's a lie. Those records are protected. How did you even access? Through entirely legal discovery. Silas lied smoothly. And I have the original complaint forms right here, archived in backup servers your IT department forgot existed. He displayed them on screen. 3 complaints, all describing aggressive behavior, intimidation, abuse of authority. All filed, all vanished. Captain Hayes looked uncomfortable. The other officers shifted nervously. Judge Herrera leaned forward. Officer Morrison, do you have an explanation for this? Morrison recovered quickly. Your Honor, police databases have glitches. Complaints get misfiled, lost in system transfers. It happens. This is clearly a witch hunt by vampires trying to discredit law enforcement. A witch hunt, Silas repeated. Is that also how you explain the $180,000 you transferred to offshore accounts in the 8 months since your wife died? Morrison went pale. Kessler stood quickly. Your Honor, my client's personal finances are relevant when they suggest he's preparing to flee, Silas interrupted, especially when we trace where that money went. To a private investigation firm that specializes in making evidence disappear. The same firm he hired 3 months after his wife's convenient car accident. Objection! Kessler was shouting now. This is speculation, conspiracy theory. It's a pattern. Silas's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. A pattern of violence, Cover-ups and murder. That's enough. Judge Herrera's voice silenced the room. Mr. Mordecai, unless you have concrete proof of homicide, I suggest you stick to facts. I have facts, Your Honor. I have a dead woman with a history of suspicious injuries. I have a husband who benefits from her death, full custody of her daughter, access to her insurance money, no more witness to his abuse. I have deleted complaints and hidden finances and a 16-year-old girl terrified to go home. Silas paused, letting it sink in. I don't need to prove murder beyond reasonable doubt. I just need to prove that Lily Morrison is in immediate danger if returned to her stepfather's custody. And I believe I've done that. Judge Herrera was quiet for a long moment, studying the documents. Mr. Morrison, you'll have a chance to respond. But first, she looked at the camera. I'd like to hear from Lily herself. Is she available to testify? Morrison's composure cracked slightly. Your Honor, my daughter is heavily medicated, traumatized. She's awake and coherent, Rebecca Chen spoke up from the back, and she's requested to speak. Your Honor, Kessler tried again, subjecting a traumatized teenager to... It's her life we're deciding, Judge Herrera said firmly. Bring her in. Two nurses wheeled Lily into the room. She looked small against the wheelchair, pale in her hospital gown, casted arm cradled against her chest. But when her eyes found Morrison, they burned with something Thorne recognized, the look of someone who'd decided they had nothing left to lose. Hello, Lily, Judge Herrera said gently. You don't have to do this if you're not ready. I'm ready. Lily's voice was soft but steady. She turned to look directly at Morrison through the screen. I need to tell the truth before he makes it disappear like everything else. Morrison leaned forward, his voice concerned, perfectly calibrated. Sweetheart, you're confused. He killed my mom, Lily said, and the room went silent. I don't have proof of the murder, but I know. She was planning to leave him. I heard them fighting the week before she died. She told him she'd found something, documents, and she was going to the police. Lily, honey, Morrison began, your mother's death was investigated by your friends, by cops who believed every word you said. Lily's voice cracked, but held firm. But I know what I saw. The night before she died, you were in the garage for hours, and the next day, her brakes failed on a straight road. She drove that route every day for 3 years. It wasn't an accident. Kessler was already objecting, talking about grief-induced delusions. But Thorne saw it, Morrison's mask slipping. Just for a second, his expression went cold and flat, revealing the real man underneath. There's more, Lily continued. She pulled something from her hospital gown pocket, a small USB drive. Mom hid this in my room 3 days before she died, made me promise not to look at it unless something happened to her. I finally opened it last week. She held it up to the camera. It's bank records, proof he was stealing from the police evidence locker, drugs, money, anything valuable that came through. He was selling it. That's where all his money came from. That's what Mom found. That's why he killed her. The room exploded. Morrison lunged forward, but the officers behind him grabbed his arms. That's fabricated. She's lying. Those records are fake. But his panic gave him away. The careful facade shattered. Everyone saw it. The rage, the fear, the guilt. Judge Herrera's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Officer Morrison, sit down, now. She turned to Lily. Can you give that USB drive to Mr. Mordecai? Lily handed it to Silas, who immediately plugged it into his laptop. Your Honor, Kessler was scrambling now. We need time to verify these files to authenticate. We'll have plenty of time for authentication, the judge said coldly, along with a full criminal investigation. Mr. Mordecai, I'm granting emergency custody to Mr. Blackwood, effective immediately. Officer Morrison, you are not to contact Lily Morrison or come within 500 feet of her. Do you understand? Morrison's face twisted with rage. This isn't over. You're making a mistake. The only mistake. Thorne spoke for the first time, his voice carrying 4 centuries of controlled fury, was thinking you could hurt that girl and get away with it. 2 police officers, not Morrison's friends, but department investigators who'd been quietly called in, stepped forward. Officer Morrison, we need you to come with us. We have questions about these allegations. You can't arrest me based on some teenager's fantasy. "We're not arresting you. Yet." The lead investigator's voice was hard. "But you're going to answer questions about deleted complaints, missing evidence, and financial irregularities. Now." As they led Morrison out, he turned back once, staring at Lily with such hatred that Thorne moved instinctively, putting himself between them. "This isn't over," Morrison hissed. "I'll get out. I have friends, I have lawyers, and when I do—" "When you do," Evangeline's voice came from the doorway, ancient and cold, "you'll find that threatening a child under vampire protection is the last mistake you'll ever make." Morrison was escorted out, still protesting. Kessler gathered his papers in angry silence and followed. The conference room slowly emptied until only Thorne, Silas, Lily, and Rebecca remained. Judge Herrera was still on screen. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm trusting you with this child's safety. Don't make me regret it." "You won't, Your Honor. I keep my promises." "See that you do. We'll have follow-up hearings to make the guardianship permanent, but for now, Lily is in your custody." She paused. "And Mr. Blackwood, thank you for caring enough to fight for her." The screen went dark. Lily looked up at Thorne, tears streaming down her face. "Is it really over?" "The legal battle is. But Morrison's facing criminal investigations now, with that USB drive and all the evidence Silas gathered." Thorne glanced at the vampire lawyer, who was already on his phone with prosecutors. "He's going to prison for a long time. What if he gets out? What if he comes after me?" Thorne knelt beside her wheelchair, his ancient eyes meeting hers. "Then he'll have to go through 100 vampires who've sworn to protect you. And I promise you, Lily, that's not a fight he can win." Rebecca wiped her own eyes. "I should call the discharge coordinator. Get the paperwork started so you can leave." "Thank you," Thorne said. "For everything. For calling me. For believing her. Someone had to." Rebecca smiled through tears. "Sometimes the system works. Sometimes the monsters win. But today a child gets to be safe. That's enough." As she left, Silas closed his laptop with finality. "That USB drive is pure gold. Financial crimes, theft, evidence tampering. Morrison's going to spend the next 20 years in prison minimum. And once the prosecutors start digging, they'll probably find enough to charge him with Jennifer's murder too." "Good," Thorne said simply. Outside, the sun was setting. Through the windows, Thorne could see his coven still maintaining their vigil. 100 vampires who'd stood watch for 18 hours, who'd traveled 620 miles, who'd risked exposure and legal trouble, all for one girl. "Ready to go home?" Thorne asked Lily. She looked at him, this ancient vampire who'd kept a promise made over her father's grave, who'd brought an army to save her, who'd fought the system and won. "Yeah," she said, smiling for the first time in what might have been months. "I'm ready to go home." The sun had fully set by the time Lily was cleared for discharge. The hospital paperwork took 2 hours, forms signed, medications dispensed, follow-up appointments scheduled. Rebecca coordinated everything, making sure Lily had what she needed. Thorne stood by the window, watching his coven below. They hadn't moved, hadn't left. 100 vampires maintaining their vigil, even though the battle was won. "They really stayed the whole time," Lily said softly, coming to stand beside him. She was dressed now in clothes Evangeline had bought. Jeans, a soft gray sweater, sneakers. The hospital gown was gone, but the cast remained, stark white against her sleeve. "They would have stayed a week if necessary," Thorne replied. "That's what family does." "Family?" Lily tested the word. "I don't really have family anymore. Mom's gone. Dad died when I was little. Morrison." She couldn't finish. "You have us," Thorne said simply. "If you want us." Before Lily could respond, Silas appeared in the doorway. "Everything's ready. The media's gone. I made sure of that. It's just the coven now." They took the elevator down in silence. Lily's hands trembled slightly. Thorne could hear her elevated heartbeat, smell her nervousness mixing with lingering fear. "What if they don't like me?" she whispered as the elevator descended. Thorne smiled. "They traveled 620 miles for you. I think you're safe." The elevator doors opened to the lobby. Through the glass entrance, Lily could see them all. 100 vampires standing in perfect formation, creating a corridor from the doors to the parking lot. "What are they doing?" Lily asked. "Honoring you," Thorne said. "Welcoming you home." He offered his arm, and Lily took it. Together, They walked through the automatic doors. The moment they emerged, every vampire bowed their head in unison. Not a subservient bow, but a gesture of respect, of recognition, of acceptance. Evangeline stepped forward first. The ancient vampire carried something in her hands, a leather jacket, sized for a teenager. It was beautiful, supple black leather with silver embroidery on the back. Not the full coven patch, but something else. A wolf protecting a young one, encircled by the words, Crimson Court, protected. Every member of our family needs armor, Evangeline said gently, her 1,000-year-old voice warm. Not just against physical threats, but against the world's cruelty. This is yours. She helped Lily slip the jacket on, careful of the casted arm. It fit perfectly. Lily's eyes filled with tears. I don't understand. You don't even know me. We know enough, Marcus rumbled, his Civil War-era accent soft. You're Jackson Morrison's daughter. You asked for help when you had nowhere else to turn. You stood up to evil wearing a badge. That makes you family. One by one, the vampires came forward. Elena handed Lily a phone, pre-programmed with every coven member's number. You're never alone. A young vampire named Thomas gave her a silver bracelet engraved with protective symbols. Maven, older even than Evangeline, simply hugged her, whispering, Welcome home, little one. By the time all 100 had greeted her, Lily was openly crying. But they were good tears, healing tears. I don't know how to thank you, she managed. You already have, Thorn said, by trusting us, by being brave enough to ask for help. That's all the thanks we need. They loaded into vehicles, Lily riding with Thorn in his sedan, Silas driving, Evangeline in the passenger seat. The convoy formed around them, protective and proud. As they pulled out of St. Mercy Hospital's parking lot for the last time, Lily looked back at the building where her nightmare had ended, where a corrupt cop's reign of terror had finally been exposed, where 100 vampires had proved that monsters could be heroes. Where are we going? She asked. Crimson Court Estate, Thorn replied. It's been my home for 200 years. It's yours now too, for as long as you want. What about school? My friends? Not that I had many. We'll figure it out. There's a good private school near the estate, or we can arrange online education if you prefer. Whatever makes you comfortable. Thorn glanced at her. This is your life, Lily. You get to choose how you want to live it. The word hit her hard. Choose. For 3 years under Morrison's control, she'd had no choices, no voice, no agency. I want to finish high school, she said finally. Normal school, with other kids. I want to be normal. As normal as you can be when you're living with vampires. Evangeline laughed from the front seat. Normal is overrated, but we'll make it work. The drive back took most of the night. Lily dozed off somewhere around the New Mexico-Arizona border, her head resting against Thorn's shoulder. He sat perfectly still, not wanting to wake her. Through the window, he watched the convoy, his family, traveling through darkness. Silas caught his eye in the rearview mirror and smiled. You did good, old friend. We did good, Thorn corrected. All of us. Jackson would be proud. I hope so. Thorn looked down at Lily sleeping. I just wish he could have been here to see it. To see who she's becoming. Maybe he can, Evangeline said quietly. Who knows what exists beyond death? Maybe he's been watching all along. They arrived at Crimson Court Estate as dawn approached. The sprawling Gothic mansion rose from landscaped grounds like something from another century. Lily woke as they pulled up the circular driveway. This is your house? She breathed, staring at the architecture. Our house, Thorn corrected. Yours too now. Over the following weeks, Lily settled into her new life. She took the guest wing's master bedroom, a spacious room with its own bathroom and a balcony overlooking the gardens. Evangeline helped her decorate, bringing in furniture and art that felt young and alive, in contrast to the estate's Gothic elegance. She started at the private school in September, telling classmates she was living with her uncle after a family tragedy. It wasn't entirely a lie. She made friends slowly, carefully, protecting her secrets. The coven embraced her completely. Marcus helped with homework. Elena taught her basic self-defense. Maven showed her the estate's library, revealing centuries of accumulated knowledge. Even the younger vampires included her in their activities, movie nights and game sessions, treating her like a little sister. Thorne watched it all with quiet satisfaction. This was what he'd fought for. Not just saving Lily from Morrison, but giving her a chance to heal, to grow, to become whoever she wanted to be. Morrison's trial happened in November. The evidence from the USB drive, combined with Silas's investigation and testimony from Lily and others, resulted in a conviction on multiple counts: evidence tampering, theft, financial crimes, and, after further investigation, second-degree murder in Jennifer Morrison's death. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison. Even with good behavior, he'd be an old man before release. And if he ever did get out, he'd find a very different world waiting, one where 100 vampires remembered his crimes and would be watching. Lily attended the sentencing. Thorne sat beside her, his presence a silent anchor. When the judge read the verdict, Lily didn't cheer or celebrate. She just closed her eyes and breathed, the first truly free breath she'd taken in years. "It's really over," she whispered. "It's really over," Thorne confirmed. "Now you get to live." 5 years later, Lily stood in Crimson Court's grand ballroom, now 21 years old and nothing like the terrified 16-year-old who'd called for help from a hospital bed. She'd finished high school with honors, started college studying social work, wanting to help other kids in situations like hers. She split her time between campus and the estate, fully integrated into both worlds. Tonight was special. The Coven was celebrating the 5th anniversary of what they called the Protection, the night they'd descended on St. Mercy Hospital. It had become an annual tradition, a reminder of what they stood for. 100 vampires filled the ballroom, along with human allies, donors, friends, people who'd learned that vampires could be trusted. Rebecca Chen was there, having become close friends with Lily over the years. Judge Herrera had sent a video message. Even some of Morrison's former colleagues attended, cops who'd helped clean up the department after his arrest. Thorne stood at the edge of the celebration, watching Lily laugh with Elena and Maven. She wore the leather jacket Evangeline had given her, now worn soft with age, the silver embroidery gleaming. She'd earned her place in this family. Evangeline appeared beside him, holding 2 glasses of wine. "You look contemplative." "Just remembering." Thorne accepted the glass. 5 years ago, I got a phone call at 2:47 a.m. Didn't know if we'd make it in time. Didn't know if we could win against a corrupt cop and a broken system. But we did, because you kept a promise to a dead friend. Evangeline smiled. "Jackson chose well when he asked you to protect her. I think he knew what she'd become, who she'd be." Thorne watched Lily help Marcus with something on his phone, patiently explaining technology the Civil War veteran still struggled with. "She's stronger than both of us, stronger than she knows." The music paused, and Silas called for attention. "Speech time. Lily, you're up." Lily rolled her eyes but walked to the front of the ballroom. Someone handed her a microphone. She stood there for a moment, looking at the assembled crowd, vampires and humans, ancient beings and young immortals, all united by loyalty and love. 5 years ago, she began, her voice steady. "I was dying. Not physically, though Morrison was working on that. But inside, my spirit was dying. I felt completely alone, trapped with a monster, and I couldn't see any way out. The ballroom was silent, everyone listening. Then I remembered something my dad told me before he died. He said if I ever needed help, real help, to find Thaddeus Blackwood. That Uncle Thorne kept his promises, so I told a nurse his name, and somehow she found him. And he came." Lily looked at Thorne, tears shimmering. "He came with an army. 100 vampires who had no reason to care about one scared teenager who risked exposure, legal trouble, even their lives, because one of their own had made a promise." She turned back to the crowd. "People talk about vampires like they're monsters, creatures to fear, and maybe some are. But the vampires I know, they're heroes, they're family. They're the reason I'm alive and free and standing here tonight." Maven was wiping her eyes. Even Marcus looked emotional. "I've learned something in these 5 years," Lily continued. "Family isn't about blood. It's not about biology or DNA. Family is about who shows up when you're in darkness and refuses to leave. Family is about who keeps promises even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, even when every logical reason says to walk away." She held up her glass. "So here's to Crimson Court, to keeping promises, to protecting the innocent, to proving that monsters can be heroes and heroes can be monsters, and sometimes the line between them is just a choice, the choice to care about someone who needs you. The ballroom erupted in applause. Vampires and humans raised their glasses in unison. Thorn crossed the room as Lily stepped down. She met him halfway, and he pulled her into a careful hug. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for keeping your promise, for giving me a family, for showing me what real strength looks like." "Thank you," Thorn replied, "for being brave enough to ask for help, for trusting us, for reminding us why we do this." Later, as the party wound down and guests began leaving, Thorn found himself in his study, the same room where he'd received that phone call 5 years ago. The painting of him and Jackson still hung on the wall. He stood before it, looking at his old friend's face. "I kept my promise, brother," he said softly. "She's safe. She's thriving. She's become someone you'd be so proud of." He could almost hear Jackson's voice in response. "I always knew you would. That's why I asked you." A knock on the doorframe made him turn. Lily stood there, silhouetted in the hallway light. "Can I come in?" "Always." She entered, looking at the painting. "Is that him, my dad?" "That's him, about 20 years before you were born. He looks happy." He was, in that moment at least. "We just survived something we shouldn't have. We were young and stupid and thought we were invincible." Thorn smiled sadly. "I wish you could have known him as I did, before the war, before the sacrifices." "I know him through you," Lily said, "through the promise you kept, through the kind of person he must have been to inspire such loyalty." She looked at Thorn. "I'm alive because he chose the right person to trust. That says everything about who he was." They stood together in comfortable silence, vampire and human, looking at a painting of two friends who'd thought they had forever. In the end, they'd been right. Not the way they'd imagined, not with Jackson surviving to old age, but through this, through a promise kept, through a life saved, through a girl who carried her father's courage and stubbornness and gray eyes. Jackson Morrison lived on in his daughter, and as long as Crimson Court existed, she would never face darkness alone. That was a promise Thaddeus Blackwood intended to keep for the next 400 years and beyond. Because some promises transcended death, some families transcended blood, and some monsters were exactly what the innocent needed to survive.